All right, guys, we're back. Southeastern 16, Max Barr, SEC basketball. What other combination could you want right there? Live streaming it on a Wednesday morning in April as we got transfers to talk about. Our updated biggest transfer portal winners. We know Max officially closed yesterday, but let's be honest. There's still plenty of movement to be had on these rosters and all that. We saw some late entries into the portal yesterday evening, and not a surprise there. But I'll tell you what, also not a surprise. Everybody hopping in here to jump on in, excited for the stream this morning. See a lot of the regulars here. Nobody's here. Well, that's actually not true. So there are people in here, but nobody is actually here. Mother Carol is here. You got Brian here. Shane's here. Spencer's here. The whole crew. Big Baller Brett is here. Now there's a surprise. Jeff's here. Everybody clocking in. Holly's here. Joe's here. Richard's here.
Come on.
Incredible stuff on a Wednesday morning, Max Barr.
Shane says a live chat today was sent from the heavens. The CBB gods were asked upon, and they answered as Shane sits here looking for something to watch and listen to while he works on this fine Wednesday morning. We were thinking about going live yesterday. I was chomping at the bit, guys. I'm chomping at the bit. I'm telling Blake, come on. We got transfers to talk about. We got stuff to update. Big day yesterday. Okay. Portal unofficially closed. You're going to have stuff. You're going to have announcements all day today about late entries that the paperwork just got, filed through. I think you had a big, one of the big men for Louisville entered, Curtis Givens, LSU's backup point guard. Well, projected backup point guard just entered. Well, just got announced he entered. So the portal's closed, but it's still going to be pretty crazy.
Yep, I think that is accurate. And as we know, some of these rosters still got some spots to fill out here. And we know that's going to happen as we go over the next little bit. Because really, and we'll talk more about this, but, if we look at just maybe the nature of the way some of these rosters look right now, I mean, I would say there are only maybe a handful of teams that you feel like Max right now are set with like, hey, there's your 5 starters, and everybody else we're still kind of filling in spots potentially based on, other things that have to be added to the mix in terms of the roster construction. But Big Gator EJ's here, by the way. Ask and you shall receive. Shane, who was talking about where is Big Gator EJ still? Is he still celebrating the national championship for the Gators? Why not? I mean, you got nothing else to do until next November. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. But all right, so let's get into some of the big stuff. You guys know we did the video yesterday. I guess, or was that the day before? Day before. It all runs together. Denzel Aberdeen to Kentucky was a big one. Speaking of the Gators, he goes from Florida to Kentucky. And so he joins the mix there. You guys can get our full thoughts on Aberdeen in the video we did do on Monday. Obviously, Nate Ament going to Tennessee was a big one. 5-star freshman. We did the video on that as well. That was a significant pickup for Tennessee, especially Max, given Rodney Rice winds up not going to the 2 people we thought he may wind up with Tennessee or Villanova. Instead, Rodney Rice hopping on the Must Bus out in Los Angeles, California, to join USC. And then, we haven't really talked about the Chad Baker-Mazara thing yet, where he entered the portal. But you've got SEC options likely for him, it seems. Whether that's in Arkansas, Ole Miss. We know Kentucky was mentioned as one of the teams, but as you note, Max, seems a little unlikely now based on the additions Kentucky's made. Boogie Flan enters the portal yesterday, but the old DNC, Max, do not contact for Mr. Fland in the portal. So there's your headlines heading into our updated transfer portal winners, which we will get to.
There's a whole lot of Brian Windhorst. If this guy goes to this place, that can only mean that this place, a lot of dominoes going around right now. Yeah. So, Boogie Flan was a huge storyline yesterday. One of the biggest that just kind of got, yesterday was crazy, obviously, but Boogie Flan enters the portal with the do not contact tag. Who is he going to? Who does he not want contacting him? Because someone's already got him. Who knows there? But Evan Mia has Boogie Flan now as the number 1 overall transfer in the entire portal cycle. I know don't it's just one analytics site, right? So don't put all your eggs into one basket. But this is as significant as it gets. Like Boogie Flan entering the portal, you got to think that there's multiple SEC teams that are in on those sweepstakes, want his talents at the guard spot. I can think off the top of my head, multiple top teams from years past that need a guard. But that's just, who doesn't need a guard? I think you can take Kentucky out of the Chad Baker Mazzara sweepstakes now that they landed Aberdeen. Seen Arkansas linked to him, and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to do something here soon. They're going to make a splash. They've been linked to Haggerty. They've been linked to Chad Baker Mazzara. Yeah, Chris, something's going on in Oxford right now. They're scheming something up big time.
Yeah, and we know they are one of those teams that still have quite a few spots to fill. So I think, as you said, don't be surprised if you hear Ole Miss being involved quite a bit over the next little bit, because they have to by necessity. But yeah, we mentioned some of the additions they've made. We mentioned the Store and Johnson ones. What was that, last week, I guess? And we kind of know what the front court's going to look like now in terms of Malik Dia, Corey Chest, and so forth. So I think, Ole Miss will be a team to keep an eye on, I think, here moving forward. But like you said, in terms of just the big names, I think that's it. Like, right, where does Chad Baker Mazzara wind up? That's obviously one of the big ones that we're looking at. Again, Boogie Flan, as you said, where does he wind up? But I think, draft-wise, obviously, is also a scenario there. And there's just a lot of things that we still don't know because, we're still going to have guys who are going to go through this draft process. We know this happens every year too, where you're going to get one of those guys that are like, okay, this guy's not leaving. There's no chance. But then all of a sudden you get some, much higher projection on maybe draft wise. And all right, well, he's out of there. And so, someone's got to replace that spot. And so I think, when you look at it from that standpoint, like as we're going up and down these rosters right now, and keep in mind, remember guys, Max has done the incredible work of giving us the visual depth charts, which we'll use here as we talk about some of these teams. But yeah, I guess if we're just kind of going through it, like we've said, there are some teams that seem pretty filled out at this point. Some teams that still, from a number standpoint, obviously Texas A&M is a team that is starting to get there. Picked up Duke Miles. That was a significant one for Bucky McMillan. But A&M still got a lot of numbers to add. I know some people are asking about Missouri. They've not really had any new additions in a little bit here, and it's kind of been a little quiet on that front, it seems, Max, as to what maybe is next for Missouri. They did lose C.Y. Young, so to Miami as in a coaching standpoint, so that can maybe factor in a little bit. But yeah, so when you look at teams like that, like they're the ones you're probably going to hear about a lot over the next little bit because they are the ones seemingly that still have some key spots they need to fill. But yeah, for the most part, though, you're starting to see some rosters kind of fill out a bit. And, like I said, in terms of questions, where does Tennessee go next after missing out on Rodney Rice? We mentioned, just some other kind of key storylines like that. Florida loses Aberdeen. All right, there's a spot you got to kind of look at. So those are your biggest questions probably moving forward.
Yeah, real quick on the Tennessee front. A&M hosted Duke Miles the day before Duke Miles was supposed to go to Tennessee. Snagged Duke because there was a few different guys linked to Tennessee to fill that combo guard spot. And Rodney Rice gets taken by the Must Bus, and then Duke Miles from A&M. Tennessee now is looking with a fantastic front court. I absolutely love the front court. You're probably already tired of hearing me say that. Jacoby Gillespie is one of the best point guards in the country already. That two spot, that combo guard spot is wide open right now. And there's really not a ton of SEC level combo guards just hanging around out there waiting to be scooped up. So that's going to be a major storyline is how does Tennessee fill out the rest of that after what just happened with Rice and Duke Miles. You had somewhere you wanted to go real quick?
No, go ahead. I'll add my thoughts after you finish.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say another thing we didn't mention yet. Chat is starting to talk about it here. Travis Perry enters the portal for the Cats. So now I think you can kind of, besides Jalen Lowe at the 1, if he's not in there, I guess you could say Aberdeen could bring the ball up and initiate the offense. You got Chandler, Jasper Johnson in that kind of combo guard role, and even Owe. Really not a point guard by any means, but with the way that Kentucky runs that offense, if you need him to bring the ball up for a stretch of play, you most certainly can. But yeah, Blake, I feel like that one kind of surprised Cats fans. We're not expecting one of those freshmen from last year who played huge minutes given the injuries to enter the portal here.
Yeah, and I think, again, we talk about this from Kentucky's perspective. You just look at the roster, like it's a pretty crowded space there. I mean, just given the work they've done, and that's where, like, if we do tie in, the concept of the theme of the show here, like Kentucky still, is certainly going to be considered, I think, one of the biggest winners of the portal. If we're looking at it from the SEC's perspective, just because, as we said, a late pickup like Denzel Aberdeen, that's not one we were expecting. So you add that to what we talked about, bringing in a Mo D. Obviously, Jalen Lowe is a very interesting, addition. We talked about just what he could bring to the table. Cam Williams, of course, Jaden Quaintance, like all those things. So, yeah, I mean, I think you're still going to put Kentucky in there, even though obviously, like with some other teams, there's some guys they swing and miss on, but that just happens in the transfer portal cycle. We just kind of know how it works from that standpoint. But yeah, and then if you just, again, Max, start to look at the other teams that stand out most to you. I mean, I still think we can't forget sort of LSU, to me, is still one that's going to be in there. We haven't talked a lot about them, but they've still made some nice additions, as we talked about. But yeah, I mean, I still think you got to put Tennessee in there. Obviously, we talk about just from a transfer portal cycle, it's not just who transfers in, but who you kind of keep as well. Auburn has been one of the biggest winners, bringing guys in, but we've mentioned Arkansas and such before. There's still a lot of teams, I think, that have brought in, really good players. Sometimes it doesn't always, you can feel a little more deflated by the guys you miss on, but I still think you look at it from this standpoint. I mean, you're probably still looking right now, Max, if I'm breaking this down from a league-wide perspective, I mean, you're still probably looking at 6 teams that look like they're top 20 type teams,
that is
right?
Insane,
I mean,
that you just said
really,
that.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. There's 6 right now that I can look at and be like, wow, okay, we're going to have to do preseason rankings, and one of these 6 is going to have to be 1, and one of them's have to be 6.
Yeah, somebody's got to be 6. Yeah.
That's gonna be brutal. But the top 6 here, that's kind of rounding out, is a very strong top group. I think in the sense where the SEC is going to take a step back might be kind of that middle to lower end, and then also shooting wise. You mentioned a few teams here. We are kind of rounding out the 2 teams that are that have the most filled up, that least work to do, would be the Kentucky and Mississippi State. In both teams, I ran the numbers on the team 3-point numbers. Both teams are in for significant regression from the perimeter offensively. So we might be going back to a little bit of the old SEC.
Maybe. Okay, well let's do this. We'll put it out there. Who are the 6 teams? Like, let's talk about it. I think we both agree Florida, the defending national champions, are in there. We said, losing Aberdeen obviously is a storyline, but when you think about who they're bringing back, Florida's going to be okay. Wouldn't be a surprise if eventually they're named as the preseason number 1 team in the SEC. Could certainly be the favorite. Kentucky, as we said, I think has got to be in there based on the roster they put together. So there's 2. I still think we're pretty high on Tennessee, despite missing on Rice. We mentioned Gillespie's there. Carey comes in, bring back Okpara, add native men. Got good sort of rotational guys that they can kind of fill out the rotation. Tennessee's okay right now. They still need to land, as you said, that nice 2 spot, but I think they're sitting in a pretty good spot. Auburn.
No one's talking about Amari Evans, by the way.
We haven't really talked about him at all.
Freshman, he's got first-round NBA potential right away. go on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I said we haven't really spent much time on him at all. But absolutely, Auburn certainly I think is going to be in that mix. We mentioned the guys they brought in, still waiting on a few things with them, but we pretty sure Auburn's going to be in that spot. Arkansas, I think is absolutely a team that you're going to put in that conversation right now. Just when it comes to, we talked about the addition of Malik Ewan, why that was a significant one. Certainly the freshman class coming in, we know there are high expectations for them. Add a veteran and Nick Pringle to the mix. Get those guys who are freshmen going into their sophomore years now, and Knox and Richmond, like those guys potentially, what they add to the table. So there's 5, Max. Who's number 6? I think I know who it is.
And then Alabama.
Got to be Alabama. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like people have just forgotten how good Latrell Wrightsell is. Like, he has a significant chance to lead the entire country in three-pointers made next year. It's not an exaggeration. And then you got Bethea, Millette, who are both snipers from outside off the bench. They need to add a wing and an extra ball handler, and match that roster up again. Go look at the ACC and match up Alabama's roster against every team in the ACC. Be like, oh wow, this is actually a pretty good roster.
Well, I'll tell you that the team that I'm still high on, you guys know we talked about it last week, and I'm going to keep pushing them. That they've got some spots they need to fill still, but I'm telling you, I think Texas is absolutely in a position to be really close, if not already feeling like they can crack that sort of top 6, because I do. The more I look at the makeup of this team and studying them over the past week, like just the individual players, and we mentioned just who they're bringing in, like they've a team that's got good size. You bring back the veterans that are going to kind of drive things, Pope, Weaver, Mark, like all that. And then you got just great size, great length in the front court. Yeah, I feel like they need a little more depth, obviously, in the backcourt. Curious to see what other additions maybe they make there, but really like what Sean Miller's done in this first offseason so far.
Yeah, Lassina Traore, as you guys know, is one of my favorite players in the league already. If you are not familiar with Mr. Traore, you're going to be very soon when he grabs 5 offensive rebounds in the first 10 minutes of your game. That's going to be fantastic. Honestly, Blake, the team that I think people are sleeping on, and we did it last year, is Auburn. It just think about a backcourt of Pettiford, Overton, Bashir, and Magwood. And then you've got Elijah Freeman. Now, guys, I know Auburn fans have been saying 40% from 3. Elijah Freeman, he's going to be another Chad Baker-Mazara. Miles Kelly, he's a sniper. He only makes about 1-3 a game. He's a 6'8", 190. A bit more of, he's not a high volume 3 guy, capable, but don't expect him to come in and hit 73s. And then the Keyshawn tandem. I mean, Auburn has kind of just been, yeah, they've got some good additions. No one's talking about them like they're going to win the league. They are right there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think to me, part of that is just simply, how special this last team was, and the pieces that you're losing from it, and it's like that mental block where it's like, come on, they can't just completely replace all those guys, right? But then you look at who they're bringing in, you're like, well, I mean, not saying it's going to be a one-on-one replacement, but like the as a whole, like as you put the roster together, like, yeah, you're starting to maybe see the ways that, okay, maybe they're not going to be the number 1 overall seed. We don't know, but hey, don't sit here and look at these guys and think, all right, well, this is just a huge downgrade from last year, when it's a different team. And when you put all the pieces together, yeah, I'd be surprised if they're still not one of the top teams in the SEC.
Yeah, just the versatility they're going to have offensively. It's going to be a different team. It's going to be a faster paced team. It's not going to be as stuck in the half court, just working everything through Broom offensively. It's going to be a little bit more spread out. But they are absolutely right there in that top 4-ish, whatever, how many teams you want to put in that top group. They're right there.
All right, let's do a little reset here real quick. You guys hopping in 20 minutes in.
Yep.
Having fun talking SEC basketball transfers. Remember, the way to help the channel out, even though we're not doing live streams every day, remember, the way you can help us out is by leaving a super chat or joining the It Just Means More tier here at Southeastern 16. Yes, you'll get some bonus content this offseason, but you're also just supporting the channel. For $3.99 a month, you can't buy anything for $3.99 these days, Max. You can't even buy a pack of Trident gum for $3.99.
Mm.
It's unreal. It's unreal, I tell you. But tell you what else is unreal. That is, and Max knows I'm going to maybe butcher the way I say this because I don't even know how to pronounce it. So we've got a sponsor for this week. Cherubundi is what I'm going to say, Max. I think that's the right pronunciation.
Cherubundi.
Cherubundi. Okay, so we got a sponsor for this week, Cherubundi. NFL Draft Week, as you know. We're not covering the latest and greatest NFL draft stuff here on this show, but we have a nice sponsor for Draft Week, and if you check out our football videos and such, you'll get maybe a little more thoughts on that from Chase and company on that. But let me tell you about Cherubundi. I'm going to tell you what I know because I'm going to do my best here. Natural products and ingredients, Max. No added sugar. I'm all about the no added sugar.
I like that.
You got the natural inflammatory with incredible benefits. Reduced soreness. Increased recovery. Contains naturally occurring melatonin, Max, to help you improve your sleep. Help support immunity. Used by nearly 500 collegiate and professional sports teams. Every NFL team, Max. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions. Who were the bums? Who were the bums that one team that didn't use it? That's what I want to know.
Yep.
Bums. Every team playing in Europe or Brazil this season had Cherubundi with them. Every single team that played.
I believe it.
Every team.
I believe it.
66 of the 67 Power 4 conference football teams. Again, who's the team that's missing out here? Every NCAA football and basketball national champion since 2007. So that tells us that the Florida Gators, the Kentucky Wildcats, they've been in on the action. The products are available Amazon, Cherubundi.com, and at retailers nationwide, including Publix and Kroger. How about that?
Nice. All right, Cherubundi.
All right. Speaking of, well, there's really no segue to that, but let's talk about more transfers here. So we talked about what we think are some of the biggest winners, Max, in terms of teams out there. But who is the team that you, and maybe include one of the biggest winners here, who's the team that has your attention most now as we unofficially closed the transfer portal yesterday? Like, who is the team that you're like, all right, I've really got my eye on this team right here because either I need to see them do this, I need to see them do that, or I'm just curious about the remaining roster movement that could take place for this team?
I have two answers for you.
Okay.
And you might have been just setting me up. I don't know if you were, but you might have been. Number one answer is clearly far and away for me. It's the Cats. There's a lot of questions in the chat about the NIL totals here. Everyone, if you're on social media, you probably saw the 20 million number that was thrown around for the Cats' total NIL expenditure. That's unconfirmed, but I would put it somewhere in the high teens, probably. It's well above 10 million. I'll tell you that much. But that they've been the story of the portal the last few days, with the big additions, the big spending. And I'll be honest, I don't look at this roster and think, whoa, that's got to be like 15 mil. I don't. I think you might get flamed for this, but I think they overpaid for some guys. And when you look at the build of the roster compared to last year, extremely different outlook as a team on what you're going to expect. Last year, entering the year, they had 3 players who had made at least 63s the year before. Brea hit 100. Robinson was in the 80s. Or it was 4, actually. Brea hit 100. Robinson was in the 80s. Almanor was in the 80s. And then Creasa was in the 60s. They don't have a single player on this roster that hit 63s last year. Cam Williams is the highest volume guy at like 50-something. They made about 200 less threes as a team. The roster going into last year, roster going into this year. The roster last year was about 39% as a collective, about 400 made threes. This one going into this year, about 200 made threes, 33%. I mean, you're talking significant, not regression, but just completely different style of team. This is not a team made to shoot threes.
No, it's a good stat because we did make a lot of that last year. We talked about Kentucky and Oklahoma kind of as those teams that, from a three-point shooting standpoint, weren't those were the two top teams last year, right? I believe. I think that was right. Yeah, and we just talked about kind of the impact they could have based off of that. And if you do, and we always say, like in the transfer portal era, like there are some things that are always going to carry over, right? Whether it's, we talk about, okay, Tennessee's defense, no matter who they bring in, they're going to be one of the best defensive teams. Like Alabama's going to, play the certain style. It's going to happen every year. But at the same time, like statistically, some of these things like this, like the 3-point shooting, like you said, the numbers are just telling us, okay, like we probably shouldn't expect that type of output just based on this.
Yeah.
Now, of course, guys can always improve. You get everybody come together and, hey, all right, now we all shoot the ball well and everything's fine. But I think that is important. And that's what we have to do a lot more of in this era is just, you got to break down the numbers to be like, okay, how's this team going to be different than one last time? We know it's the same coach, like, but how is it going to be different? And so, I think it's a good point, and we'll find out with Kentucky kind of how that evolves, knowing that has been something that Mark Pope obviously his teams have done well there. And so you can always compare them and see. And real quickly though, Max, I want to drop this in before I go on to my next point, but as expected, I botched the ad read there. If you want to buy a little chair bundy, use the code SE20, SE20 for 20% off at the checkout, 20% on that. So yeah, there you have it. All right. You like it. Okay. But so hold on. I'm going to see if I can read this here. I'm going to get to the super chat real quick. $5 super chat. It says, I'm 40, still eligible for the COVID year. Tickets and gear for the NIL deal. Still waiting on the call from Cal, actually from Nolan too. So want to go play for the Hawks. Do we think that's possible, Max? Have you gotten a call to play for anyone this offseason?
I have had to talk to my agency. They didn't have the budget.
Yeah, well, that's how it works sometimes. So Ryan says, hashtag 40 minutes of Ronald Daniel. Yes, that's what we're looking for here on that. Okay. A team I have my eye on, and we'll keep talking about Kentucky. I know some people want to talk about Kentucky. We got a lot of Kentucky fans. People wonder why. We got a lot of Cats fans in the chat. But team I got my eye on, actually there's two. I always break my own rule of saying one team, but I'm going to pick two. Texas A&M is obviously one because, they are, like we said, they have a new coach. They're trying to fill out these spots. They've made some nice additions, but they still have a lot more spots to fill out if they're going to, be a team that can contend, I think, for an NCAA tournament spot next year. And so they're one I have my eye on, and the other one I have my eye on. And that's Missouri. I'm just kind of, like you said, there hasn't been a lot of movement recently. Now, that's not the worst thing just because they do have a lot of people on the roster. But yet I'm still just intrigued as I study their roster and try to figure out exactly, okay, like how does this team, we talk about teams comparing from one year to the next. How does this team compare to the one last year? And we know, they're obviously bringing back some key pieces. Having Mark Mitchell back, that's significant. That's one of the biggest significant returns in the SEC. But I just want to see again how they kind of come back from what was a breakthrough turnaround season. Didn't finish the way they wanted. You lose some of those older guys. You have to replace them a little bit. But still, they're going to have a team that does have a lot of older guys on there. And so, Missouri and A&M to me are two teams that kind of interested to see where we go from here with kind of filling out the rest of the roster for both of them, even though Missouri is way ahead from a number standpoint.
Yeah, great shot with A&M. Just picked up Duke, got Mbako from Indiana, 6'9". I really like Mbako.
He's good.
Not too efficient, but man, 6'9". He's extremely versatile, can do a ton of stuff. He's probably going to be their best player right away. With Missouri, if you thought I was worried about Kentucky's shooting, holy smokes.
Yeah.
The leading shooter right now on Missouri from last year is Javon Porter on Loyola Marymount. He made 48 threes and shot 32%. The leading returner is Jacob Cruz at 34%. He made 40 threes. Right now, their team shooting percentage from their cumulative roster from last year is 32.2%. That would be dead last in the SEC entering last year. They need a premier shooter like Air.
Who's the team we're not talking about enough? I've got my pick, and I'm going to see if you can guess my pick.
Oh, well, your pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think you are going to go Georgia.
Well,
I don't know if you are.
It's not a
but
bad.
I know you like Cannon catching.
Not a bad choice. I'm gonna go Vanderbilt because I think the Commodores sneakily have like a pretty good nucleus here. The return of certain guys I think is significant in that, right? Like Tyler Tanner, we mentioned the role he played last year. Tyler Nickel. I mean, talk about shooting, right? I mean, it's like, hey, it could separate you. What do you think about the rest of the roster? Obviously, they brought in Frankie Collins. Mike James, we talked about him kind of being an interesting addition. Kind of know that, there's a lot of upside there. Harris, they're I think Vanderbilt's kind of interesting when you look at their roster.
Yeah, and they just signed Okereke from Cornell, 6'7" senior, pretty physical. And Trilly has a prediction for Washington wing, another 6'8" guy, Tyler Harris. So just kind of in that little wing to 4 spot, you've got Tyler Nickel, McLaughlin, Tyler Harris, and Okereke at all between 6'7", 6'8". There's 4 guys with a lot of versatility, who are all high major players. And then I really think that they're saying, hey, Tanner, you and Mike James are our guys at the combo guard spot next to Frankie. And you think about the offense and how much better Tyler Tanner got throughout the year last year. I think he's primed to be one of the better underclassmen guards in the league. When you're talking about just turnover rate, guys you can trust, returning backcourt players, it doesn't get much better than Tyler Tanner in terms of knowing what you're going to get. I mean, we can trust this guy, right?
Yeah, I think they got some decent depth, I think, on this roster, and I think I'm curious to see how it fills out. But I think they're one, and they were kind of our sleeper last year, and then we talked ourselves out of it for a little while. But I think they're another one that maybe I'd rank them a little higher maybe than some people would right now. I'm not saying I'd put them in the top 6, but maybe compared to a couple of these other teams, I feel a little better about their prospects than I do maybe some other teams we said that still got a bit more work to do.
My like underrated team that's not being talked about enough is Oklahoma. I love what they have done in the portal. I mean, I love it. Xavier Brown from St. Joe's is an incredible point guard, and you pair him up with Nigel Pack, Pack's going to be one of the best 3-point shooters in the country next year. He's going to be like north of 38%, almost guaranteed. And then you have a sophomore, Dayton Forsyth, who also is a sniper and is a really nice shooter. You got 3 really good shooters. And then Tay Davis from Notre Dame. I really like his game. Jeff Nwankwo and Jaden Jones are both redshirt senior / grad, whatever, both redshirt upperclassmen, that were with the program all of last year. And honestly, last year, whenever Mo Wagi would get in the game, I'd be like, why isn't this guy their starter? I know he fouls at a very high rate. It's hard to keep him on the floor long, but I thought Mo Wagi was their best big man last year. And so I think Oklahoma, I'm going to have them probably middle of the pack, which is probably a little bit aggressive, but I'm buying in on Porter.
Buying in. Well, I mean, we weren't fully buying in last year. We were not. I think a little down on them going into the season, but we know how it started, and eventually they made the tournament. But yeah, they're a fascinating one. I think just given the makeup of the roster. Who we not talked about much? Maybe just do a little rapid fire here. We've not really talked a lot about Georgia, Mississippi State. Really, I mean, they've got a pretty full roster, though. We mentioned like South Carolina. Obviously, losing Eaglestaff was an interesting one we did not expect after he was there. Yeah, so I think those are just maybe the teams we haven't really mentioned at all. Any thoughts on them?
Yeah, South Carolina gets Mongolian Mike. Sharab Jamps, 6'9" combo guard. Kind of a one of a kind type of player. So now you have, I believe I was reading up on some message boards that South Carolina wants to go with Michi at point guard. They are not looking for another point guard.
I can see that. I mean, I don't think that's the worst idea.
Yeah.
It'd be
I know
fine.
that if you look at, depending on where you look, projected depth charts or projected lineups or stuff like that, a lot of South Carolina stuff has had Michi at the 2, with the point guard being kind of open above the incoming freshman Ellis. But I think you can go ahead and slide down Michi to that point guard spot. Apparently, the staff is buying into him being that true ball handler with Sharab Jams. And so, who else did you say? Mississippi State. You want to talk about a roller coaster? They add like 3 guys that are all 6'8" to 6'10" in like the same within like 20 hours of each other, and then Sam Walters commits to SMU. So now they lose one of them. They get Arizona State's Amir Ali, kind of like a wing 4, and then the main one was Achor, who you probably remember him 2 years ago from Samford when they beat Kansas in March Madness and was stolen from them. That block was not a foul. But yeah, Mississippi State's pretty much done. They're looking for another combo guard to pair with Hubbard. They really wanted Tate Connerway, but Indiana snagged him, and they wanted Melvin Council, but Kansas snagged him. So the top combo guard targets to pair with Hubbard for Mississippi State were unable to secure. Still looking for that last piece there.
Got 7 players on the roster that are 6'8" or taller. So they got some size. Mississippi State does, that's for sure. So yeah, so that's kind of some quick thoughts on them. Again, we didn't mention much on Georgia. We said I think Georgia's kind of also maybe in that underrated tier of, like you mentioned, adding a Catchings to the mix. You get Wilkinson from Cal. Yeah, like Blue Cane's back. You talked about Cyril, some of the maybe developments there with him, but yeah, Georgia's another one that just need a point guard. Need to find a point guard.
Yeah, they just had a Caden Lewis on for a visit.
Yep.
I don't know if that was yesterday or Monday, 21st, but it was one of the two. And so, as you guys know, was originally committed to Kentucky, and Georgia's also connected to the UConn decommit Darius Adams. I believe Alabama's in that mix also, but you can tell by their targets looking for that point guard, looking for that true ball handler. Hosting a few visits, they're active. I expect Georgia to land a point guard soon. They're looking for one. One thing we didn't mention, Blake, was that you mentioned Rodney Rice being snagged up by USC. Domino effect. Desmond Claude, oversized guard. He is in the portal, and Trilly listed Florida as an early contact there. So keep an eye on that. That would be, you're talking 6'6" Claude at the 2 with 6'9" Tommy H, 6'11" Condon, 6'10" Ruben Chignello. Good luck grabbing a board on that.
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking about we talked about this past year, right? Like how many SEC teams felt like Final Four type contenders. And I think when you look at it right now, man, there's, like we said, that group of 6 that we've kind of put in there. Like they do all feel like top 15 to top 20 teams right now, even though, as we said, there's still some moves that need to be made to kind of solidify that a bit. But you're kind of looking ahead and thinking, okay, like I think expecting 14 teams to make the tournament, as we said, I don't think that's going to happen. But if you're just looking at, is there going to be a huge drop off in terms of the high level type teams? I'm not saying maybe you get as many of those, top seeds or anything the way we had this past year, but I do think you're looking at those teams in particular, and we'll see if anyone else can kind of jump into that mix. But like I keep looking, I'm like, man, Arkansas, are you kidding me? Like that's a roster. Like, and we keep going down the line as you go through, like again with Kentucky and all these other teams. So yeah, Tennessee, as we said, still got some maybe a spot to fill, and there's just a lot of those different things. So I think the high level teams are very elite here. We talk about where you're going to put them nationally, at least right now, as we wait for maybe a couple more moves.
I lagged out there for a second while you were talking about the elite teams, but
I said you were great.
Yeah, I thought so. The one team that I think can hop into that group, if you were trying to ask me, who out of that top 6 that we haven't mentioned can hop into that real quick, I think it's Ole Miss.
Yeah.
When you look at because they've got money. The Ole Miss has one of the biggest remaining budgets left right now. So they're gonna grab a big fish, whether that is PJ Haggerty, Chad Baker-Mazara. I know Arkansas has been loosely connected to Jameer Watkins. There's a few big ones out there that would take $1 million plus to land them. Ole Miss is going to grab one of them. So you add one of those big time fish in with AJ Storr, Corey Chest, Dia, and Corin Johnson, and you're like, whoa, real quick. I don't know about the depth here, but that starting 5 just initially is in terms of talent, obviously Porter era, you got to talk about fix. Is there a guy with a high assist rate to create all that? Obviously, you got to get into all that. But just talent-wise, they nag one of these big-time fish that are left. Ole Miss, talent-wise, instantly starting 5 up near the top.
Yeah, I'd put Ole Miss and Texas, to me, are the 2 teams that are right there with the chance to kind of crack into that top group. And I know people are asking, well, what would be your rankings right now? I don't know how I'd rank those 6 teams that we kind of have maybe ahead of everyone else, but I do know, like I said, I think nationally, those are all top 25 teams. Maybe, push that up to top 20, whatever you want to push. But I think that certainly feels like the case right now. And we just have to wait and see, right, on who else kind of joins the mix for some of these teams. So, all right, Max, we're going to wrap up here shortly. Any additional thoughts on biggest transfer portal winners? Again, we've already kind of talked about what we're looking at here moving forward with some of the teams we have our eye on. Some potential decisions that have to be made, as we said. We'll find out and wait on draft decisions and all that other stuff. We got a little time on that, but yeah, that's kind of where things stand in the SEC right now here as we get closer to the end of April.
Yeah, just 2 things real quick. I think if I had to put a early rankings, I would just say I'm probably going to put Florida at 1. They're bringing back the whole front court, and they picked up one of the best Ivy League point guards we've seen in some time. Probably gonna have the Gators 1. But another thing, I ran you guys through the 3-point numbers for the Cats earlier on how to expect much less volume from 3. And if there is that volume, probably not as many are going in. There's a trade-off with that, though, Blake. And that trade-off is your defensive rim protection and perimeter pressure has gotten significantly better, right? With JQ protecting the rim, Mo D is versatile as ever. 1 through 5 can guard. Denzel Aberdeen, I would say the biggest strength he has is his kind of backcourt versatility with defending on the perimeter at 6'5", can kind of guard 1 through 3 pretty easily. I really like that. So where you're not going to have the Kobe Bryant, 100 3-pointers at 50% basically or whatever. You're not going to have that, but you're going to have much more defensive versatility.
All right, let's get to a couple chats here on the way out as we check in with you guys. Again, we appreciate you jumping in and sharing your thoughts on everything. I think, Max, we've already had some questions about Kentucky and the NIL money. We kind of already talked about that, I feel like, did we not? Yeah. We mentioned this from Big Baller Brett on the possibility of Baron Philon coming back to Alabama. Could that be something that goes down for the Tide? Obviously, that would be significant if that were the case.
That would be big time. And Brett, you're wondering about Cedric Coward. So am I. The amount of times I've looked up Cedric Coward on Discord and Twitter to find the news, I'm trying, man. He's got a big price tag. I
think we've learned with some of these players that I'm not making any crystal balls on anyone right now, man. We've done that with a couple guys that we thought were surefire locks to the SEC, and they headed elsewhere. So, yeah, I think just not really confident about that at this point. But I'll tell you what I'm confident about. What Son of Seal here says here, $3.99. What a return for your investment. If you join the It Just Means More tier here at Southeastern 16, my goodness, I can't think of a better investment than that. $3.99. You get that little green thing on your name, Max. You get the bonus content this off season. You get to support this channel. What a trio that is right there. But all right, Alex says the Kentucky saving a roster spot and some NIL money for Blake Lovell to come in and hit clutch free throws to close out games. I'm for sale, you know. Listen, you want to come in? If Kentucky has any money left, give me $5 and a slice of pizza, and I'm there. I'll hit some free throws.
Hey, if you're starting Otega Owe and Mo D, plenty of free throws.
Yes. By the way, Joe Mother asks, when is the NCAA women's basketball coverage coming? We've been asked this question times before about why don't we cover women's basketball? Honestly, it's just we would like to. We just don't have the bandwidth right now. You know, it's just kind of tough to cover everything, but yeah, absolutely. We love to eventually get there. So if you're someone interested in covering SEC women's basketball, reach out to us. We're always looking to expand our reach on the game, Max. The game of basketball, invented by Mr. James Naismith. Isn't that?
I wonder what Mr. Naismith would think of the transfer portal.
Oh, I'll tell you right now, probably wouldn't be good. We got a little Jets NIL deal, and I'm all in on Jets. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was thinking about Jets pizza this morning. So hey, if that's the deal, somebody reach out, find Jets, and I will gladly sponsor, or let them gladly sponsor us. Yeah. All right. We're out of here.
We are, but maybe not for long. There's going to be announcements.
We're going to have more videos coming. There are going to be people who are going to make decisions and all of that. And so we'll have you covered. As you guys know, we will, as we said, try to do this at least a couple times a week. Sometimes that may not be the case if there's not a lot going on, but we're already gearing up for some fun interviews this off season. Lots of interesting things we've got in the works. We just wanted to kind of cruise through the transfer portal here and kind of get all these roster movement things finished, and then we'll get to some even cooler stuff this offseason in SEC basketball. So, all right, we appreciate you guys. Don't do us a favor. Remember, subscribe button, like button, turn on your notifications, and yeah, be sure to check out all our other content here on the channel. Baseball's coming up here in just a few minutes if you want to jump into the baseball chat and all that. But all right, guys, we appreciate you watching. Talk to you soon. Southeastern 16.